Sound the alarm. Behind the scenes. Here's how we turn Toronto into a dystopian landscape using mostly AI. I'm Reid, the director and editor, and also the musician behind Seakeg.
Hey, I'm Darrin Klimek. I shot the video and I also did the color.
Conceptually, we wanted to create a version of Toronto from the future, where nature is taking over, animals are roaming free, and the city is generally on fire.
We had the idea of doing an AI video together for quite a while, and we met and even just played around with some stuff, and we realized it was going to be a lot harder than we initially thought.
When we first started working on this, we thought it was going to be a very simple process, but quickly realized that that compositing is going to be, a big part of the workflow to kind of make certain things happen. And one good example of that is the city. So the cityscape.
Yeah, this was a lot of work for you.
I tried to just change the city skyline and add everything. I think it was in Pika or runway, and it was just changing everything way too much. It was changing me. It just wasn't working. And so I saw a tutorial online, and it gave me an idea for a workflow that kind of made sense, where I took a still of the skyline, brought that into Photoshop, selected various parts and built a new city using the generative fill, then took that image and brought that to life. So that was a nice way of just essentially focusing on the fire and smoke and explosions and all that kind of stuff, bringing that to life. And then compositing and tracking and doing all that in After Effects. The gas station as well. So this began as a still image, told this still that had the fire and everything to come to life. And what was hilarious is that for some reason it decided to add in some creepy dude who walked into the scene, and then I proceed to walk backwards away from him.
I remember when I asked you, who's the dude on the right? You're like, he's the guy that started the fire.
Yeah.
But I think this is a good point to actually bring up. We're lucky this was a music video and that we had complete creative control, because, we didn't have complete creative AI control, because I don't even know if that's possible at this stage with AI to have complete control. You do get a lot of weird random stuff happening that you might just have to run with,
And it was kind of fun to actually just run with it. It's like, I never would have thought to have a creepy guy walk into frame, but it works in a very weird, random way.
Weird but good way.
Yeah, exactly. And, there's a few kind of weird things that happen, but because the shots are so quick, you don't really notice a lot of the little strange things that are in there. There's the alley scenes where I wanted there to be this flood element at some point, and so the alley kind of ended up making sense. But those were also generated from a still image. So when you see me playing guitar, it does look a little bit strange, and that's because the AI is making me play guitar. So it's not in time. Sometimes I have 6 fingers or 3 fingers, and it's kind of odd. But at the end of the day, it's still pretty impressive that it brought a still image of me and is moving me around, and I'm looking around and moving in 3D and interacting with water and all that stuff. So
yeah, I feel like if you're making something that's kind of more on the art side, I feel like AI is great right now. But if you were making a movie or a commercial, it would be more challenging. You'd have to have a much better mastery, or maybe use a different model than the ones we were using to accomplish what you wanted.
100%. The cemetery was another scene. Originally, Darrin came up with this cool idea of putting a gas mask on me while I'm playing guitar, and it looked the first shot actually looked pretty cool, but the hair was kind of off. It still kind of made me look weird. And then also part of the challenge was
consistency.
I can make it consistent across the other shots that I was in, and none of them looked the same. They're just slightly different versions of each other. Going back to another scene with the water treatment plant, I'd put an elephant walking in the background. Okay, what if I take that same elephant and use that reference image. And I think I used Pika as well and tried adding in that elephant into the scene, and it actually worked quite nicely, and it blended into the scene, and there's some continuity there between the elephant and a couple of the scenes. What was the most impressive or surprising thing that you learned or saw in the music video?
I think the coolest thing isn't so much one thing. The big takeaway for me is like, yeah, you can make lightning strikes in the background. You can make kind of whatever you can imagine. You can kind of get either close to that, or in the ballpark. For now, in the future, in a couple of years, I think if we did this again, it would be mind-blowing to see exactly what we conceptualize could be on the screen. That's my prediction.
Yeah, it's just going to get better and better.
What about you? What was your big takeaway from this?
The thing that sort of surprised me the most was just how good it could be. Like the water going over the ridge. It took many iterations and lots of attempts to get to that point. There's a lot of really crazy fails, and different models performed better. I think it was Kling. I think Kling was probably my favorite one in terms of doing realistic things like fire, water, smoke, like all that kind of stuff. I think Kling did a really good job of bringing to life, whereas Runway and Pika felt a little bit sort of didn't quite have the refinement in the physics. So I think Kling's done a really good job, but the limitation of Kling is you're working from an image and bringing that to life as opposed to doing a video to video. So that was one limitation.
If you prompted it for something in the real world, it wouldn't always get it. If you asked it to put a spaceship in the sky, it would do a really good job of that. It was the weird stuff that didn't exist, it could get right.
Yeah.
But stuff in the real world it seemed to struggle with sometimes. Like the rhino. The rhino was, we wanted this rhino to replace a dumpster, and it did a good job of doing it, but the rhino, it would only face the rhino away from camera. And no matter what I prompted, it would not face camera. It was weird, but we just wound up going with it because in the end, we're like, this is a weird video, so maybe the rhino should be looking into a corner. But it felt like we needed multiple models because sometimes Pika couldn't do it, but Kling could, and then sometimes Kling couldn't do it, but Pika could, or Runway did it better. It was weird. Like, they all had their own strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, like that was one of the really cool takeaways is that there's not really a one fit for this workflow.